Hey everybody, welcome back to the Court of Random Opinion. My name is Neidigh. As you can see, I'm finally back at home with my regular setup, but it has been a while. I had a weird couple of weeks. I was sick all last week, so that was tough. And then I got home Saturday close to midnight, and then I've had some family stuff going on since then, so it's good to be back. I think I'm going to be staying put for a while, which is good because it's been really hard for me to keep up lately, and I'm trying to get back on track with that. Anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened with Perez Hilton's hearings in Nevada. I really wanted to be there, but unfortunately my circumstances didn't allow it. But we have a couple updates from yesterday. Blake Lively is seeking all kinds of information from Perez in her case against Justin Baldoni. She's still trying to support this delusional fantasy of a smear campaign against her and will not accept that the public backlash is organic. Despite there now being several documents from members of the public who Blake tried to subpoena, explaining exactly why they don't like her and how they were never paid to say anything that they've said. Now she's asking Perez for all kinds of things, and he argues that he's protected by the reporter's privilege and also that this is meant to chill his right to free speech. Now, amazingly, not totally surprisingly, but amazingly, Blake Lively is arguing that her needs are more important than Perez's rights to free speech. Which is totally on brand, but so wild. And people will say that she has to make that argument if she wants to proceed with what she's doing, to which I would say, she needs to stop what she's doing. That is entirely the problem. She's crossing the line over and over and over again. This is not going to help her case at all. It makes her look terrible to the public, and she still thinks somehow that the backlash is not organic. So for people saying that she has to make the argument that her needs in this case are more important than his free speech and privileges, yes, that is the problem. The problem is that she is doing this at all. She actually does not have to make that argument. She doesn't have to do any of this shit. She can just walk away. And I know that well because she did that with me. She tried to subpoena random and invasive information of mine and then withdrew at the first sign of resistance so she couldn't face any consequences for that. So before yesterday's hearing, the judge had asked the parties to give a supplemental briefing showing whether and how privileges under things like the reporter privilege applied to the information being sought. So of course they launch into this tired song about how Perez Hilton is part of some scheme by the Wayfair parties, and that he's one of the content creators or journalists that they use to perpetuate retaliation against Blake Lively. Retaliation for what? I don't know, because there was no sexual harassment, and she's lying about that. But that's the story we're going with, I suppose. Mr. Hilton has failed to meet his heavy burden to demonstrate that he is entitled to avail himself of the federal common law reporter privilege because he did not procure the information while acting in the capacity of an independent investigative reporter. But even if he could, any such privilege is qualified and should not apply because the information Miss Lively seeks is relevant, material, and critical to her claims, and she has been unable to obtain it despite exhaustive efforts. Bitch, it doesn't exist. It doesn't matter how much you exhaust yourself. You got nothing. And by it, I mean evidence of a smear campaign. Even if she is successful in using the courts to violate people's rights in this situation because she's upset about things they said about her online, it will not be useful to her case. You'll be violating people's privileges and rights to privacy for no fucking reason. The hundreds of videos and headlines that Mr. Hilton has published on his own platforms about Miss Lively perpetuate the same narratives as the Wayfair parties she's claiming that they were discrediting her and calling her a bully and a liar. Well, where's the lie? Perpetuate the same narratives, including by calling her a bully. Jesus Christ. Do you really think that people need all that much help to come to that conclusion? Labeling her lying lively. Is that the one name that stuck in your head? Because he's got all kinds of names for it. And declaring that her claim about a non-existent smear campaign has fallen apart. Defendant Tag admitted in sworn interrogatory responses that Mr. Hilton is one of the content creators who seeded, generated, created, or influenced social media content or provided related digital or social media services directly or indirectly at the request of or on behalf of any Wayfair party or their agents or affiliates. And as we know, that is not true. They're completely ignoring the broad scope of the interrogatory in question, and they're trying to whittle down its meaning to point the finger in a certain way. And everybody knows exactly what their game is at this point, because they tried to suggest that those sealed at the time interrogatories showed that every single content creator named in the social media subpoenas, all, 107 of us, at least, were named in the interrogatories by Tag. Their bluff was called, that information got unsealed, and no names from the social media subpoenas who had actually filed a motion to quash thus far were listed in that document. It was a gross play on words, again, meant to kind of narrow down an actually very broad interrogatory to suggest that the only outcome from somebody being named in that interrogatory response was that they, seeded or created content on behalf of the Wayfarer parties, when that is actually not the case. That very short list of people also included people who had just asked for comment or made routine media requests. And here's what I think is like the most incredible part of this, because it's a perfect example of her entitlement. If Mr. Hilton is entitled to assert the federal common law qualified reporter privilege, it must yield, because Miss Lively's need for the information outweighs Mr. Hilton's First Amendment interest under the specific facts in this case, based on the three-pronged test. And like I mentioned before, people will say that she has to make this argument because of the three-pronged test. No, she doesn't. She doesn't have to do any of this shit. She could walk away right now. She could have stopped and not done this at all in the beginning. But that right there kind of perfectly sums up her "I'm the most important, somehow victim in the world" mindset. And make no mistake, Blake Lively is a victim of nothing and no one except for Blake Lively's own behavior. Now, really quickly, I just want to go over what Perez had to say after yesterday's hearing and kind of what's going to happen from here.
And I view that as a win, because her lawyer said in court today, we want this resolved quickly. And I wanted that as well, until I found out I can have her pay for all of the work it would take to compile a detailed privilege log, which is what the judge is requesting as the first step. But not even the first step. There is a pre-step before the first step. The pre-step is the judge gave me until Monday to get quotes from 3 forensic experts and paralegals, and the judge will then assess the fairness of those estimates and force Blake Lively to pay for them if she wants this privilege log.
And she should have to pay for that. Obviously, this is all still ongoing. This is not totally resolved yet. I'm assuming Perez is going to have to break out another set of florals for at least one more day in court, but we'll see. That's all I got for now, though, guys. If you want a more detailed breakdown of what happened in court yesterday, my friend CJ was there, so I'll put a link to that and her channel down in the comments below. That's all I got for now, though, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.